So when two terms have the same variable, they are considered to be like terms. And this is, again, something that we've talked about in the past. And we know that if we have like terms inside of a polynomial, then they can be combined before the variable is solved. And we call that simplifying. So in a case like this here, if we want to solve for this variable, we have two terms that have the same variable. We have 2d and we have negative 3d. And the first thing we need to do is we need to combine those. To combine these here, okay, and again, we've done this in the past. This isn't brand new stuff here, but we need to do 2 minus 3, and that gives us negative 1. So therefore, this is going to be negative d, or negative 1d. Okay, it's going to be negative 1d. So in other words, our equation here, and I'm just going to pull it over here because we've simplified that side now, is negative d is equal to 4. And negative d is equal to 4. To solve, okay, we pull out our drawing tools here. Okay, we need to get d all by itself. We divide by the negative, negative 1. Divide this side by negative 1. And remember that when we divide by negative 1, all it does is it changes the sign on each. So it changes that to being a positive sign, and it changes the positive to being a negative. So here we're going to get that d is equal to negative 4. D is equal to negative 4. So we need to make sure that we combine our two sides, or sorry, our two pieces or more before we can solve, because we only want one occurrence of the variable before we go through and solve. Now, terms can also be moved across equal sign. Okay, they can be moved across equal sign. To move a term from one side to the other, it can be added or subtracted to both sides. Okay, so if we're going to move it from one side to the other, we're going to add it or subtract it to both sides. And it's important that we do to both sides, because remember that whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other side. So whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other side. So let's take a look at this example right here. We have 4x minus 10 is equal to 2x. Now we want to get everything onto one side. We can either move the 4x onto the 2x side, or we can move the 2x onto the 4x side. We can do either or, and I will just show you, I'll show you kind of both really quickly. I'll do it. So I'm going to start with the first one here. I'm going to move the 2x onto the 4x side. So I'm going to subtract 2x from here, and I'm going to subtract 2x from here because it's a term. Okay, so it's a term. So we have 4x minus 2x. Now that term, it's really important. Remember, it's a term, and we have these two terms being combined together. 4x minus 2x is just going to give us 2x. The 10 is going to stay the same because they're different terms. And on the other side here, we have 0. Okay, we have 0. Now to solve this here, okay, it's important to remember that when we subtract, if there's nothing left, it's 0. Okay, we add 10 to both sides. And that's going to get the 10 out of there. And we'll quickly write that down. So we have 2x is equal to positive 10. We then divide by 2. Got to divide both sides by 2. Divide that side by 2. Divide this side by 2. And we're going to get our finished product of x equals 5. Okay, so x equals 5. And now that would give us our, that is our answer. So that's one way of doing it. I like kind of doing it this way because the x stays positive, so subtract the smaller one. Personally, that's a little bit of what I like doing, but it's not the only way to do it. So let's try it again here. In this case, we're going to move the 4x over. Minus 10 is equal to 2x. Get rid of that there. Okay, I'm just going to bring it up here so we have a bit more room. So now I'm going to start with, instead of subtracting the 2x, I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. Okay, this is another way that we can do it. It doesn't really matter. It's going to actually work out exactly the same. Okay, it's going to cancel out here. So we're going to be left with negative 10. Negative 10 is equal to, now 4 minus 2 is negative 2x. Okay, it's important that we recognize that it's negative 2x. It's not 2x, because there's a, 4 minus 2. No, we have to do it in order. We're subtracting a 4x from the 2x. Then we divide by negative 2 because there's that negative 2 in front. Get that all the way across, and that's supposed to be a negative 2. Kind of looks like a negative 2. And when we do that, these ones are going to cancel out. Negative 10 divided by negative 2 is positive 5. And negative 2 divided by negative 2 is 1, positive 1. So we have x equals 5. So in other words, we get both of them exactly the same. Okay, so it's exactly the same. Now, as I mentioned, okay, either the 4x or the 2x term can be moved to the other side, as it is a term, just like a constant. Okay, so it's exactly like a constant. When we move a constant to one side, it's the same thing. We have to take the entire thing. Okay, so it's going to be subtracted from both sides. Okay, it's going to be subtracted from both sides. So here we subtract the 2x from both sides. Here we subtract the 4x from both sides. In both cases, it works. In both cases, it actually gives us the exact same value as we go through there. Okay, when the terms are combined, okay, there's only going to be one term with a variable. Okay, so here you notice we have like two terms with a variable. We want to combine it and make them just one term with a variable. Therefore, once we have that one term with a variable, the term, or the, I should say actually the equation, sorry, the term can be simplified. Yeah. Simplified, and then the equation can be solved. Okay, so we can end up solving for the equation. All right, let's do a few examples. I got 4 examples here that we're going to go through with different degrees of difficulty. The first one here, we have 14 minus 3x is equal to 4x. Well, you notice how we have that negative 3x term and the positive 4x term here. And what we want to do is we want to try to get x all by itself. Sorry, we want to get all the x's together. So let's say that first. Now, one of the little things that I'm going to suggest here is we have the 14 on this side here. So my suggestion would be to take this x and move it to the other side. Okay, works really nice. So we're actually adding x. So we're going to add 3x. There we go. We're going to add 3x to that side. These ones are going to cancel out. Okay, and this is going to leave us, we're going to be left with 14 all by itself. And it's nice to do that as well. It's nice to kind of get the constant to one side and the variable to the other side. This is going to be 7x. Because then all we need to do afterwards is just to divide. Okay, so in this case now, we have 7x and we have 14. So all we need to do now is divide both of them by 7. And these are going to cancel out there. And on this side here, we're going to get a 2. And on the other side, we're going to get an x. Okay, so we're going to get an x. Now, again, we can confirm that this is in fact the correct answer by verifying. Okay, verifying means to plug this 2 back into the equation and make sure that everything works. And when we do that, what we're going to do here is we're going to plug it back in. We're going to put the x in back into our original equation. So we have 14 minus 3 times 2 is equal to 4 times 2. Okay, so we're going to plug it back into our original equation to make sure that everything works out perfectly. Okay, it's 14 minus 6 is equal to 8. And we know that 14 minus 6 in fact is 8. So this side is equal to 8 and this side is equal to 8. And this is how we would verify that our answer is in fact correct. On your assignment today, I'm going to be asking you to verify that it is in fact correct. Okay, that's what we do. We check to see if it's correct. We put our value back in there to make sure that it is the correct one. Okay, the both sides then match up and they give us the same value. All right, so that's solving. Again, here the big thing is to take our x term and move it to the other side. Usually we're going to try to isolate now our constant, so to speak. So here we got a 4 here. We need to get the x away from the 4. So we're going to subtract x from this side and we're going to subtract x from that side there. Okay, again, it's going through and trying to get that number all by itself, combining all of our x terms or whatever the variable happens to be all together on the same side. 3x minus x is just 2x. And then we will divide both sides by 2. These ones cancel out, becomes 1. Okay, so remember, it becomes 1. It doesn't cancel out, or it doesn't become 0, it becomes 1. We have 4 divided by 2 is just 2, and 2 divided by 2 is 1, so it's x. So in other words, our x is equal to 2. This would be 2 plus 4 is 6. 3 times 2 is 6, so it does in fact work. Okay, it does in fact work. All right, let's go through one that's made a little bit more difficult here. Here we have constants and variables on the same side, or on both sides. So what we want to do is we want to move all the constants to one side and all the variables to the other side. So I'm going to start off by moving this 5 onto the other side. So I'm going to add both sides. I'm going to add 5 to both sides. And I'm going to do it in 2 steps. If you want to kind of include both the first step and the second step together, once you get the hang of it, you can gladly do that. This is now 2h plus 8. Becomes 2h plus 8. Then I'm going to move the h's all to the same side, and you might be able to kind of guess here that I'm going to be taking this 2h and I'm going to be subtracting 2h from this side, and I'm going to be subtracting 2h from this side here. These ones are going to cancel out, and we're going to be left with 8 all by itself there. And on the other side, we have 6h minus 2h, so it's just 4h, and here is going to be 8. All right, so now we moved the constants to one side, we moved the variables to the other side. You could do it all in one shot. You could subtract 2h and add 5 to both sides, and you would get 4h plus 8, or is equal to 8. You would get that right there. Okay, and if you become more comfortable with it, you can gladly do that, but we can also go step by step as well. All right, let's get rid of the 4's. Okay, so we divide both sides by 4. And so we're going to get h all by itself there, and the other side is going to be 2. Okay, h equals 2. Now again, verify, plug it back in, determine that we got the right value. We put a 2 in here, it's 4 plus 3 is 7. We put a 2 in here, it's 12 minus 5 is 7. Both sides are 7. That means that we in fact did it right. So our h value has to be 2. Okay, so h value has to be 2. All right, last one here that we're going to take a look through in this video. Okay, we have x on both sides, we have a number on both sides. Here we have a negative x, so actually I'm going to try to make it easier. I'm going to add x to both sides, and then I'm going to get rid of this 3, so I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. Okay, and so what that is going to give us, and I'm going to write this out in before I do any of the subtraction. So on this side it's 9 minus 3 because the x's cancel out. On the other side it's going to be x plus x because the 3's cancel out there. And when we combine that, 9 minus 3 is 6, and x plus x is 2x. And so we're left with 6 is equal to 2x. We then divide both sides by 2. And when we solve, 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 2x divided by 2 is just x, and so it's going to be, x is going to be 3. Okay, so this tells us that 9 minus 3 is 6, and 3 plus 3 is 6, so in fact, that does work out. I'd like you to take a look at questions 3 to 5. Okay, it's solving, getting all of our variables onto one side, so move terms over, show your work, show how you are moving terms over, okay, and then solve for the variable.